So last night it finally happened. That sounds dodgy. Last night I watched John Carpenter's new film, The Ward. You may remember I did a blog about The Ward in I think about January or February, and I was going to go and see it, but it was only in a local cinema for like a week. And I was going to go with a friend, Callum, and then we didn't get to see it that week, so we went to go and see it the second week, and it was gone. So I didn't get to see it until last night, and many of you'll know that I'm like a massive John Carpenter fan. Like he's my favourite director. So I was really excited to see this, but you know, I was a little bit cautious because I'm aware, as much as I do love a lot of the films he did throughout the 90s, I think, you know, since They Live, there has been a lessening in the quality of his work. But I do still really like most of the films that he's done in the 1990s. So I was a little bit cautious about The Ward because I wasn't sure if it was going to be very good or not, and it's been 10 years since John Carpenter's made a film. His last film was Ghosts of Mars, which, if you watch my video on it, you realise is a guilty pleasure of mine. I actually think it's far better than people make out. But he was so disillusioned with the movie making process after that film that he all but retired. So this is the first time he's came back in 10 years. Apart from he did do Cigarette Burns and Pro Life, which were 2 episodes for the Masters of Horror TV series. The Cigarette Burns is really worth checking out, by the way. Anyway, so The Ward. It's set in the 1960s. It's a horror film, and it's about a girl who, at the beginning of the film, we see her set fire to a building, and she's arrested. And we realise that she's not mentally sound, and she's taken to a psychiatric hospital. She's then put into a ward where there are a bunch of other girls that have got sort of various different problems. And much like Shutter Island and other films of that sort of ilk, the movie, you realise very quickly in the film that there's something not quite right about the hospital that she's in, or at least the ward that she's in. And Kristen, the main character, starts to realise that there's been girls that went missing from the ward, and no one seems to know where they went or what has happened to them. At the same time, Kristen starts to see this horrible ghostly figure, who is, you know, it's this sort of decomposing girl. You know, it's actually, I have to say, I think the effects for it were really well done. And as the film progresses, this figure comes in and starts, you know, terrorising the members of the ward, and Kirsten believes that it's linked to whatever subversive element is going on amongst the staff, amongst the head psychiatrist, the head nurse and all that, and the orderlies, that this creature is something to do with them. So that's what the film is about. I liked it. I didn't love it. I thought, you know, there were a few good scares in it. Initially, when I first started watching it, I thought that Carpenter had maybe misstepped and miscast a large part of the film. But as the film went on, I realised that he hadn't. You know, there was a reason why he cast it the way that he had, and they did a really good job, I think, in capturing the sort of 1960s feel. The colours on display with all the clothes and the art production of the well, there's not sets, of the location. It really did feel like it was something in the 1960s, and I think the way it's been colour corrected as well was to try and infer that a little bit. What I would have liked to have seen is, when the film was being colour corrected, I would have liked to have seen it feel more film-like, because there were places where there's too much of a sheen on it. At times it felt like it was more of a television production. So it was an effective horror film, that's the main thing. I was never bored. of it. But I think the problem with the film comes in the fact that it feels like a very constrained movie. While the psychiatric ward seems like quite a sort of big location, it really feels like they didn't use it to their best capabilities. If you watch something like Session 9, okay, that was an abandoned psychiatric hospital, but you know, they really used the locations really well. But I think in the ward, it feels quite constrained. But you know, maybe that's what they were going for. But I felt that, you know, it could have been shot a little bit better from that point of view. The biggest problem with it is the script. You know, all the actors and actresses did well. Like I say, it was shot fine. It was you know, not great, but it was there were moments where there were moments that were really visually striking, and then I think the rest of it felt a little bit like a television movie. But you know, it was okay. It was collectively, it was shot okay. I don't think Carpenter did the music. It was very understated. But there were obviously places where you got the feeling that either Carpenter had overseen some of it, or the composer had like deliberately tried to imitate him. But you know, like I say, I keep getting sidetracked. The biggest problem is the script. It is just, it's run of the mill. The script is run of the mill, and the whole idea for it is run of the mill. And as far as I'm aware from reading interviews with John Carpenter, the reason that he did the film was primarily because it was in the one location and that it would be easy to shoot, which worries me because Carpenter's supposedly coming back and wanting to do a few films now. But the way he was speaking, I don't know if he was joking, but he was sort of saying that he's lazy and he just wants to shoot in like one location. Now you can look at Carpenter's work and you can say, okay, well actually, you know, Prince of Darkness, they did that. Assault on Precinct 13, they did that. And I think that, you know, okay, so he's got a track record of shooting in small locations. But I just hope that he would have more of an enthusiasm for it. It feels as if he doesn't really have an enthusiasm for it, and I feel like that's kind of being shown on film. That aside, I did like it. I did like the film. Let's say the script is the biggest problem, but I would say watch it. You know, it's entertaining, and you might sort of see how the film will pan out very early on. That's the problem with it. It's pretty easy, I think, to decipher what's going on in a lot of places. But yeah, like, I think a lot of people will probably think it's better than some of the other films that Carpenter's done in the 90s. I'll need to watch it a few times, because the thing is with Carpenter films is that there are a lot of films, you know, like for example Ghosts of Mars, which I hated the first time I saw it. I was like, what is this? And I quite like it now. So maybe that'll happen with The Ward. I didn't hate The Ward though, I did sort of quite enjoy it, but I don't really feel that compelled to watch it again. But that being said, it's still great to see another Carpenter film. You know, just the fact that you know he made it is a brilliant, brilliant thing. So I think I would definitely recommend it. Go and watch it, go and check it out, and let me know what you think about it. Different, and this is something that's going to happen increasingly in a lot of my videos. Primarily the videos that I do are reviews, so I try and keep them as spoiler free as possible. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to talk a little bit about the film that's going to have major spoilers in it. So if you haven't seen the movie, this is where you should stop watching this video and you can come back afterwards. So I'll give you a chance to go. I can't really get away with doing that because I don't have a watch. Right, okay, so if you're still here and you haven't seen the film, then you obviously aren't that interested in seeing the movie. But I would say, you know, don't ruin it for yourself. Go and check it out before you hear me spoil it for you. Anyway, right. So the whole idea, here come the major spoilers. The whole idea of the film is that the main character, Kristen, she's in this ward with all these other girls, and there's this ghostly figure which is murdering each of them, and they're trying to figure out what happened to this girl. It then transpires that you find out that the girl's name is Alice, and that before Kristen entered the ward, those other girls killed Alice for whatever reason, and this is her revenge coming back to execute each one of them. And then you find out that, you know, basically it's all in Kristen's head. All the characters are aspects of her personality, and the ghost Alice is actually her real personality coming through and killing each piece of her fractured mind. Which, look, it's a good enough idea. My problem with it is this. You know, I really don't like films that end in that sort of way. I feel like it's like the sort of stories that I write a lot of short stories, and it's like the sort of short stories I was writing when I was 10 years old, you know. They would have that sort of ending. They would have an ending that would, you know, oh, nothing was all that it seems, and you know, all of these things are just in our mind, or it's a dream, or whatever. You know, the classic short story thing, you know, and then the character woke up in their bed, you know, and all was safe, you know. And I just feel it's kind of like that sort of ending. Now, it would have been okay if it wasn't for the fact that the film it telegraphs what happens. It telegraphs that that's going to happen. It tells you that, you know, early on. And what I did was, I don't know if I've still got the piece of paper kicking about. There you go. There. I don't know if you can read that. Oh, never mind. Right. I wrote down for a laugh, because I said to my friends about 20 minutes into the film, I wrote down a piece of paper and I said, I think I know how this is going to end. And I just wrote down all are the same, all of the patients are the same person, right? And you know, that's a flaw. That's a real flaw. If you can see the ending, which is supposed to be a twist, it's supposed to be a big reveal. There are other films that are similar to it. I don't want to name them because, again, it would be a spoiler. But there are films out there, that quite recent films, in fact there's two specifically I can think of in the last 10 years that have the same ending, and both take place in a psychiatric hospital. So that's a problem as well, because, you know, you're sort of thinking, well, surely they knew that these stories were out there, and that they were, you know, it's really just telling the same story that other people have already done. And some people would argue that in those two other films it was done more effectively. I think probably what the hook of this story was that the girl executing each of them, that was probably the hook, you know. In fact, I've just thought of a third film that actually has that. That's the killer in another film thing was from about 2000, 2001. It turns out that all the people there are aspects of the one personality. So it's just been done to death, and I think it's a shame, because Carpenter actually does a really, really good job of the character Alice. She's actually really quite frightening, and there's a couple of bits that are really sort of, oh, you know, Jesus. So I think that it's definitely something that you should check out if you haven't. If you haven't checked it out, just ruin the end for yourself. So I think maybe that's one of the reasons why I don't really feel compelled to watch it again. I know I will. I ordered it on demand, so I've got it for 48 hours, so I probably will actually watch it again, like tonight or tomorrow. Or tomorrow, I've got a film thing to go to tonight. So I will watch it again, but only because it's a Carpenter film. Really, you know, it doesn't really. You know, after that twist ending, it's really sort of there's not a lot to stay for. So that's how I felt about it. Kind of, am I disappointed? Not really, because I went in with low expectations, to be honest. After reading and listening to interviews with Carpenter, I felt like he wasn't really into the movie. So I thought we might end up with something that was like not very good. So it was actually better than my expectations. It's a solid enough horror film. It's not great, but it's solid. And that's all. So I really sort of dragged on and rambled through this video, so I do apologise, but as you can see from my hair, I've actually just got up. So anyway, yeah, that's all for now. And the other film we watched, by the way, was a British film called Threads, and it's a movie that I saw when I was a child, and it's terrifying, and I think that'll probably be my next review, but yep, that's all for now. So apologies if I bored all of you. Yeah, bye.